The alarm clock buzzed at 4:47 a.m., 3 minutes before it was supposed to. Terrence Walker's hand shot out from under the thin comforter and silenced it before the sound could wake Zoe. In the darkness, he lay still for a moment, feeling the weight of exhaustion press down on his chest like a physical thing. His back ached from yesterday's double shift at the warehouse, and his right knee throbbed the way it always did when rain was coming. But lying still didn't pay bills. He sat up slowly, his dark brown skin catching the faint glow of the streetlight filtering through the worn curtains. The apartment was cold. The landlord had promised to fix the heating 2 weeks ago, but promises didn't keep anyone warm. Terrence pulled on his work pants from the chair beside the bed, the fabric stiff and smelling faintly of cardboard and diesel fuel. In the kitchen, he moved quietly. The linoleum floor was cracked in places, and he knew exactly which spots creaked. He filled the kettle with just enough water for 1 cup of instant coffee, because boiling extra meant wasting electricity they couldn't afford. While he waited, he counted the bills on the table. Electric, past due. Rent, due in 5 days. Zoe's school lunch account, overdrawn. The letter from the dental office about her cavity, unopened because he already knew what it said and how much it would cost. His wallet sat next to the bills. He opened it and counted what was inside. $53. That was it. That was everything until Friday's paycheck, and Friday was 4 days away. He did the math in his head. Bus fare to the interview this afternoon. $3 round trip. Zoe's breakfast and lunch, packed from what they had. Dinner tonight, pasta and butter, maybe the last can of sauce. That left $50. Exactly $50 to stretch across 4 days for anything else that came up. Nothing could come up. The kettle whistled softly. Terrence poured the water over the instant coffee, watching the brown crystals dissolve into something that looked like hope, but tasted like compromise. He drank it black, standing at the counter, looking at the drawing Zoe had taped to the refrigerator. It showed 2 stick figures, one tall and one small, holding hands under a yellow sun. Above them, in her careful 7-year-old handwriting, Daddy and me, forever. His throat tightened. Keisha should have been here. She should have been the one making coffee, humming that song she loved, telling him to stop worrying so much. But Keisha had been gone for 2 years now, taken by an illness that moved faster than the insurance approvals, faster than the treatments, faster than his ability to say goodbye. And now it was just him and Zoe, and $53, and a stack of bills that didn't care about grief. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. At 6:15 a.m., Zoe's door creaked open. She appeared in the hallway, her dark curls flattened on one side from sleep, dragging her worn stuffed rabbit by one ear. "Daddy?" Her voice was small and raspy. Terrence crossed the room in 3 strides and scooped her up, pressing his lips to her forehead. "Morning, baby girl. You're up early." "I heard you moving." She wrapped her thin arms around his neck. "Are you going to work?" "Later. First, I'm making you the best breakfast in the world." "Oatmeal?" "The one and only." She giggled against his shoulder, and the sound filled something in him that the coffee couldn't reach. He carried her to the table and sat her down, then heated water for oatmeal. While it cooked, he sectioned her hair, his large, calloused hands surprisingly gentle as he worked coconut oil through her curls. This was their ritual, the one Keisha had taught him in those final months when she knew she wouldn't be here to do it herself. "Daddy, why do we have to use the old oil? It smells funny." "Because it still works, sweetheart, and it makes your hair strong and beautiful just like you." He braided her hair into 2 neat plaits, securing them with the elastic bands that were stretched thin but still held. When he finished, she turned and smiled at him, her dark eyes bright and trusting. "Do I look pretty?" "You look perfect." They ate oatmeal together, hers with a sprinkle of brown sugar he'd been saving, his plain. She talked about school, about the spelling test on Friday, about her friend Maya who had a new backpack with a unicorn on it. "Can I get a new backpack, Daddy?" Terrence looked at her worn purple backpack hanging by the door, the zipper held together with a safety pin, the straps fraying at the edges. "Maybe for your birthday," he said, smiling even though her birthday was 6 months away and he had no idea how he'd afford it. "Okay." She accepted this without complaint, and that hurt worse than if she'd begged. After breakfast, he walked her to the bus stop 3 blocks away. The morning air was cold, and Zoe's jacket was too thin, but she didn't complain. She held his hand tightly, swinging their arms between them. At the corner, he knelt down to her level and zipped her jacket all the way up. "Remember what I told you? Stay close to Mrs. Rodriguez on the bus. Go straight to class. Don't talk to strangers. And you love me to the moon and back." He pulled her into a tight hug, breathing in the smell of coconut oil and child shampoo. "That's right, baby girl. To the moon and back." The bus arrived, yellow and loud, and Zoe climbed aboard. She turned at the top of the steps and waved. Terrence waved back, standing on the corner until the bus disappeared around the block. Then he walked to the warehouse. The shift was brutal. 8 hours of lifting, stacking, scanning, moving. His supervisor, a man named Rick with a perpetual scowl and coffee breath, watched them all like a hawk, calling out anyone who slowed down, even for a moment. "Walker, you got time to stand around, you got time to move faster." Terrence didn't argue. He just moved faster. During his 15-minute break, he sat in the break room and pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. He opened his email and read the message for the 10th time. From Meridian Solutions. HR subject. Interview confirmation. "Dear Mr. Walker, we are pleased to invite you to interview for the position of Operations Coordinator. Please arrive at 3:00 p.m. today at our downtown office. Operations Coordinator. Salary, $48,000 a year. Benefits, weekends off. A real job, the kind where he could use his mind instead of just his back, the kind where he could take Zoe to the dentist without choosing between that and rent." He had applied on a whim 3 weeks ago after his coworker Martinez mentioned the company was hiring. Terrence had a logistics certification from before Keisha got sick, back when he thought he'd have a different kind of future. He hadn't used it in years, but he listed it anyway, along with his warehouse experience and a reference from his old supervisor who'd always told him he was too smart to be stacking boxes forever. He didn't think they'd actually call him. But they did. And now, in 6 hours, he had to walk into an office building downtown and convince someone that he was worth $48,000 a year. He looked down at his hands. They were rough and scarred, the nails permanently edged with grime no amount of scrubbing could remove. He looked at his reflection in the black screen of his phone. His face was drawn, older than his 32 years, with lines around his eyes and a tiredness that no amount of sleep could fix. He didn't look like someone who belonged in an office, but he had to try. At 2:30 p.m., Terrence left the warehouse early, losing an hour's pay but gaining a chance. He took the bus downtown, watching the city change as they moved from his neighborhood to the gleaming high-rises and clean sidewalks of the business district. The Meridian Solutions building was all glass and steel, 17 stories of success and ambition. Terrence stood outside for a moment, adjusting his tie. It was the only one he owned, dark blue and slightly worn, but it was clean and pressed. His shirt was white, the collar a little frayed, but not noticeably so. His shoes were scuffed but polished. He looked presentable. He looked like he was trying. He took a breath and walked inside. The lobby was cool and quiet, all marble floors and modern art. A security guard at the desk looked up. "Can I help you?" "I have an interview at 3. Terrence Walker." The guard checked his list, then nodded. 15th floor. Elevators are on the right." Terrence took the elevator up, his stomach tight with nerves. When the doors opened, he stepped into a reception area with soft lighting and leather chairs. A young woman at the desk smiled politely. Mr. Walker, you're early. Please have a seat. Someone will be with you shortly. He sat down, his hands folded in his lap, trying not to touch anything that looked expensive. Around him, people moved with purpose, dressed in suits that probably cost more than his monthly rent. He felt out of place, like a man wearing borrowed clothes at someone else's party. But he stayed. At 2:55 p.m., his phone buzzed. A text from Zoe's school. Reminder, lunch account balance overdue. Please update payment method. He closed his eyes briefly, then put the phone away. At 3:07 p.m., the receptionist's phone rang. She answered, her face shifting from polite to concerned. Yes, I understand. Of course. She hung up and looked at Terrence. Mr. Walker, I'm so sorry, but there's been an emergency. Ms. Chen, the woman conducting your interview, had to leave unexpectedly. We'll need to reschedule. Terrence felt something sink in his chest. When? I'll send you an email as soon as we have a new time. He nodded slowly and stood. Thank you. He walked back to the elevator, the disappointment heavy on his shoulders. 4 days of hoping, of imagining what $48,000 a year could mean, and now it was just postponed. Maybe canceled. Maybe never. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor, and Terrence stepped out into the lobby. That's when he heard it. Please, I just need to pay this bill. Can't you take a check? He turned. A woman stood at the security desk, her back to him. She was black, her hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing a gray blazer and slacks. Her posture was rigid, her voice strained in a way that suggested she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. The security guard shook his head. Ma'am, the billing office only takes cash or card for same-day payments. Hospital policy. My cards aren't working. I don't understand. They were fine this morning. Her voice cracked slightly. Please, my father is upstairs and they won't release him until this is paid. I'm sorry, ma'am. There's nothing I can do. Terrence watched her shoulders drop, watched her hand press against the desk like she needed it to stay upright. He saw the way her other hand clutched a piece of paper, the way her breathing had gone shallow and quick. He knew that feeling. He knew what it looked like when everything was falling apart and no one could help you. He walked over. Excuse me, he said quietly. How much is the bill? The woman turned. She was younger than he'd thought, maybe late 30s with sharp, intelligent eyes currently red-rimmed and exhausted. Her face was beautiful in the way that came from good bone structure and expensive skin care, but right now it was lined with stress and fear. I'm sorry. The bill, Terrence repeated. How much is it? She looked at the paper in her hand. $50. It's just the copay for discharge, but they won't let him leave until it's paid. And my cards... She stopped, her voice breaking. I don't know what's wrong with them. Terrence pulled out his wallet. Inside was $53. $50 in bills, $3 in change. He thought about Zoe, about the 4 days until payday, about the empty pantry and the overdue bills and the $50 that was supposed to carry them through. He thought about Keisha, about the hospital bills that had buried them, about the hours he'd spent begging administrators for payment plans and extensions. He thought about what it felt like to need help and have no one offer it. He pulled out the $50 and held it out to her. Here. The woman stared at the money, then at him. I can't take that. Please, Terrence said. His voice was steady, warm, the voice he used when Zoe had nightmares and needed to believe everything would be okay. Your father needs to go home. Let me help. You don't even know me? I know what it's like to stand where you're standing. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Recognition. Understanding. The silent acknowledgement of shared pain. Slowly, carefully, she took the money from his hand. Her fingers brushed his palm, and he felt how cold they were, how they trembled slightly. Thank you, she whispered. I'll pay you back, I promise. Just tell me your name, your number. "It's okay," Terrence said. "You don't have to." "I do. Please." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. "What's your name?" "Terrence Walker." She typed it quickly. "And your number?" He recited it. She saved it, then looked up at him with tears in her eyes. "I'm Naomi Chen." The name hit him like a physical blow. Chen, Miss Chen, the woman who was supposed to interview him. "I'm so sorry about today," she continued, not seeing his expression. "I had to leave. My father collapsed, and they brought him here, and everything just—" She pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "It's okay," Terrence said automatically, even though his mind was reeling. This was her. This was the CEO of Meridian Solutions, the woman who held his future in her hands, and he had just given her his last $50. "No, it's not," Naomi said. "You had an interview scheduled. You lost time coming downtown, and now I've taken your money." "Your father needs you," Terrence interrupted gently. "That's what matters. We can reschedule." She looked at him for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face like she was trying to memorize it. "You're not what I expected," she said softly. "What did you expect?" "I don't know." She shook her head. "But not this. Not kindness from a stranger when you clearly need that money yourself." Terrence looked down at his worn shoes, his frayed collar. She had seen it then, seen what he couldn't hide. "Everyone needs kindness sometimes," he said. Naomi's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her face tightened. "I have to go. They're ready to discharge him." She looked back at Terrence. "I will pay you back. Today. As soon as I get home and figure out what's wrong with my accounts. And I will reschedule your interview personally. I promise you that." "Take care of your father," Terrence said. "That's enough." She nodded, then did something unexpected. She reached out and squeezed his hand, her cold fingers pressing against his warm palm. "Thank you, Terrence Walker," she said. "You have no idea what you've done for me today." Then she turned and walked quickly toward the elevator, the $50 clutched in her hand. Terrence stood in the lobby for a long moment, staring at his empty wallet. $3 left. $3 to last until Friday. He had just given away his last safety net to the woman who was supposed to decide if he got the job. He didn't know if that was the best decision he'd ever made or the worst, but it was done. He put the wallet back in his pocket and walked outside. The afternoon sun was bright and cold. He stood on the sidewalk trying to figure out how he was going to explain this to Zoe, how he was going to make $3 stretch across 4 days. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "This is Naomi Chen. I just sent you something. Please check your bank account." Terrence opened his banking app, the one he avoided looking at because the numbers always made him feel worse. The balance had changed. A deposit, $500, and a note, "For your kindness. This is just the beginning." NC Terrence stared at the screen. His hand started shaking. $500. Groceries. Bills. Zoe's dental appointment. Breathing room. He looked back at the building, at the glass tower where, somewhere on the 15th floor, a woman he'd just met was taking care of her father. He typed a response. "You didn't have to do this." Her reply came immediately. "Yes, I did. Come to the office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Not for an interview, for a conversation. I need to know more about the man who gave away his last $50. Terrence stood on the sidewalk reading the message 3 times. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Not an interview, a conversation. He didn't know what that meant. But he knew one thing. His life had just changed. That evening, Terrence took Zoe to the grocery store. They walked the aisles together, and for the first time in months he didn't count every item, didn't calculate the total in his head, didn't put things back because they couldn't afford them. He bought milk. Real milk, not the powdered kind. He bought fresh vegetables, chicken. A box of the cereal Zoe liked with the cartoon character on the front. At the checkout, when the cashier said the total, he handed over his card without the familiar knot of anxiety in his stomach. It went through. Zoe looked up at him, her eyes wide. "Daddy, are we rich now?" He laughed, a real laugh that came from somewhere deep in his chest. "No, baby girl, but we're okay. We're going to be okay." That night, after Zoe went to bed with a full stomach and a smile on her face, Terrence sat at the kitchen table and thought about the day, about the $50, about Naomi Chen's cold, trembling hands, about the way she had looked at him like he was someone extraordinary when all he'd done was what anyone should do. Except people didn't do that. Not usually. Not in his experience. He thought about tomorrow, about the conversation, about what she could possibly want from him. He thought about the way his life had been a series of closed doors and empty pockets, and nights spent worrying about Zoe's future, and he thought about how sometimes when you had nothing left to give, giving it anyway opened something you didn't know was closed. His phone buzzed, another text from Naomi. "I hope you and your daughter had a good dinner. Sleep well, Terrence. Tomorrow is important." He stared at the message. She remembered he had a daughter. He hadn't mentioned that in the lobby, which meant she'd read his file, the one from his job application where he'd listed Zoe as his dependent. She had looked him up. She knew who he was. And she still wanted to see him. Terrence typed back, "We did. Thank you again. I'll be there at 10. He set the phone down and looked at Keisha's photo on the shelf. She was smiling in that picture, her dark skin glowing in the sunlight, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. "I don't know what's happening," he said quietly to the photo. "But I think something is. Something good. I hope you're watching. I hope you're proud." The photo didn't answer, but the apartment felt a little warmer. And for the first time in 2 years, Terrence went to bed without the weight of fear pressing down on his chest. He went to bed with something else. Hope. The next morning, Terrence woke at 4:47 again. But this time, when he made coffee, he added sugar. When he made Zoe's oatmeal, he didn't measure it out carefully. He let her have as much as she wanted. At breakfast, she looked at the bowl and grinned. "Did we win the lottery?" "Something like that," Terrence said. He walked her to the bus stop, the morning air cold but somehow less biting. At the corner, she hugged him tight. "You look happy, Daddy." "I am, baby girl." "Good. You should be happy more." She climbed onto the bus, waving from the window. Terrence waved back, his heart full. Then he went home, showered, and put on his interview clothes again. The same shirt, the same tie, the same scuffed shoes. But somehow, they felt different today. At 9:30, he took the bus downtown. At 9:55, he stood in the lobby of Meridian Solutions, looking up at the floors above. At 10:00, the receptionist smiled and said, "Mr. Walker, Miss Chen is ready for you. Please follow me." She led him past the interview rooms, past the conference areas, all the way to the end of the hall, to a door with a nameplate, Naomi Chen, CEO. The receptionist knocked, then opened the door. "Ms. Chen, Mr. Walker is here." "Thank you, Rachel. Send him in." Terrence stepped inside. The office was large, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But what caught his attention was Naomi. She stood by the window, dressed in a navy suit, her hair down around her shoulders today. She looked different than yesterday. Composed. Powerful. But when she turned and saw him, her expression softened. "Terrence," she said, walking forward and extending her hand. "Thank you for coming." He shook her hand. Her grip was firm and warm. "Thank you for seeing me." She gestured to the chairs by the window, away from the formal desk. "Please, sit." They sat, and for a moment neither spoke. Then Naomi leaned forward, her hands folded in her lap, and said the words that would change everything. "I need to tell you something, Terrence. Yesterday, when you gave me that money, I was at the lowest point of my life. My father is dying. My company is under attack from a hostile board member. My bank accounts were frozen as part of a legal maneuver I didn't see coming. I had nothing. And you, a man I had never met, gave me your last $50. She paused, her eyes shining. I spent all night thinking about that, about what kind of man does that, about what kind of character that takes, and I realized something. What? Terrence asked quietly. That I've been hiring the wrong people. I've been looking at resumes and credentials and references, and I've been missing the most important thing. Character, heart, the quality that can't be taught or faked. She reached into the folder on the table beside her and pulled out a paper. This is an offer letter, Terrence. Not for operations coordinator. His heart sank. For director of operations. $75,000 a year. Full benefits. Flex time so you can be there for your daughter, and a signing bonus to help you catch up on whatever you've been struggling with. Terrence stared at her. I don't understand. I need people like you in my company, Naomi said. People who see someone in need and help them, even when it costs them everything. People who lead with compassion. People who understand what's really important. But you don't know if I can do the job. You have a logistics certification. You've been managing complex operations at a warehouse for 2 years. You're overqualified for the coordinator position. She smiled. And yesterday, you showed me you have something no degree can teach. Integrity. Terrence's hands were shaking. He looked at the offer letter, at the numbers that seemed impossible. Why are you doing this? Naomi's expression grew serious. Because yesterday, I learned something important. When I had nothing, when I was desperate and afraid, you didn't hesitate. You didn't ask what was in it for you. You just helped, and I realized that's what I've been missing. In my company, in my life. People who care more about others than themselves. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city. My father is a good man, Terrence. He built this company from nothing. And last night when I told him what you did, do you know what he said? Terrence shook his head. He said, Naomi, if a man gives away his last dollar to help a stranger, that's a man who understands what wealth really is. Hire him, and don't let him go. She turned back to Terrence. So, that's what I'm doing. I'm hiring you. But more than that, I'm asking you to help me remember what matters. To help me rebuild this company into something my father would be proud of. Something that values people, not just profits. Terrence stood slowly, his legs unsteady. He looked at the offer letter, at the number that would change everything for him and Zoe. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Naomi said softly. And then tell me about your daughter. Tell me what it's like to be you. Because I have a feeling I have a lot to learn from Terrence Walker. He looked at her, at this woman who had been a stranger yesterday and was offering him a future today. And he thought about Keisha, about the way she used to say that kindness always came back around, even when it didn't look like it would. He thought about Zoe, about the smile on her face this morning, about the life he could finally give her. He thought about $50, about cold hands and desperate eyes, about the moment when you have nothing and give it anyway. And he smiled. Yes, Terrence said. Yes, I'll take the job. Naomi smiled back, and in that moment, something shifted. The beginning of something neither of them expected. The start of a story that would change both their lives. But that story was just beginning. Terrence's first day at Meridian Solutions started at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning that felt unreal. He stood outside the glass tower in his new suit, not expensive, but new, purchased with part of the signing bonus that had appeared in his account 3 days after he'd accepted the offer. The navy fabric still smelled faintly of the store, and the tie around his neck felt foreign, but purposeful. He took a breath and walked inside. The lobby was different when you belonged there. The security guard who'd witnessed him give away his last $50 looked up and smiled with recognition. Mr. Walker, welcome back. Ms. Chen left instructions for you. 15th floor, Rachel will get you set up. Thank you. In the elevator, Terrence caught his reflection in the polished steel doors. He looked like someone else, someone who had a future, someone who could provide for his daughter without counting every dollar, someone who belonged in places like this. But beneath the new suit, he was still the same man who'd braided Zoe's hair this morning, who'd packed her lunch in the same worn lunchbox, who'd promised her that tonight they'd celebrate with pizza, the good kind, from the place that delivered. The elevator doors opened. Rachel, the receptionist, stood waiting with a warm smile. "Mr. Walker, we're so glad to have you. Miss Chen is in a meeting, but she asked me to show you to your office and get you oriented. Follow me." His office. The words felt impossible. She led him down a corridor lined with glass-walled offices and conference rooms. They passed people in sharp suits, people who looked confident and certain, people who probably didn't know what it felt like to choose between electricity and groceries. Rachel stopped at a door halfway down the hall. "Here we are." The office was modest by executive standards but felt palatial to Terrence. A real desk, not a break-room table. A computer with dual monitors. A window overlooking the city. A bookshelf, empty and waiting. And on the desk, a small succulent in a ceramic pot with a note. "Welcome to Meridian. This is just the beginning." N.C. Terrence touched the plant gently, then sat down in the chair. It was ergonomic, adjustable, comfortable. He thought about the metal folding chair in the warehouse break room, about the way his back always ached after lunch. This was real. This was happening. Rachel walked him through the basics: computer login, email setup, building access, cafeteria location. She introduced him to his team, 4 people who would report directly to him, all of them polite but clearly assessing this new director who'd appeared out of nowhere. "We've been without a director for 3 months, said Marcus, a lean black man in his 40s who served as senior logistics coordinator. "Things have been chaotic." "I'm here to help with that," Terrence said, "but I'm going to need you all to teach me how things work here first. I've got experience, but every company runs differently. I want to learn from you." Something shifted in the room. The assessment turned to cautious approval. "That's refreshing," said Jennifer, a woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes. "The last director thought he knew everything." "I definitely don't," Terrence said with a slight smile. "But I'm a fast learner, and I'll work as hard as anyone here." Marcus nodded slowly. "All right then, let's show you what we're dealing with." The morning flew by in a blur of information. Supply chains, vendor relationships, delivery schedules, inventory management systems. Terrence absorbed it all, taking notes in a spiral notebook he'd brought from home, asking questions that showed he understood the fundamentals even if the specifics were new. By noon, his head was full and his hand ached from writing. Marcus clapped him on the shoulder. "You're doing good, man. Better than good. Want to grab lunch with us? We usually hit the cafeteria." "Actually," Rachel's voice came from the doorway, "Ms. Chen asked if Mr. Walker could join her for lunch. Conference room B at 12:30. The team exchanged glances, curious, speculative. "Looks like you're getting the executive treatment," Jennifer said. There was no malice in it, just observation. "I'll catch up with you all this afternoon," Terrence said, "and I want to hear about that vendor issue you mentioned, Marcus." "You got it." Conference room B was smaller than the others, with a round table and soft lighting. When Terrence entered, Naomi was already there, standing by the window with her phone pressed to her ear. She wore a charcoal suit today, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look fierce and focused. "I don't care what Richard thinks," she was saying, her voice cold and controlled. "The board meeting is in 2 weeks, and I will have the votes. Tell him that." She hung up and turned. When she saw Terrence, the hardness in her expression softened immediately. "Terrence, thank you for coming. How's your first morning?" "Overwhelming," he admitted. "But good. Your team is solid." "Our team," she corrected gently. "You're part of this now. Sit, please. I ordered lunch for both of us. I hope you don't mind." They sat. Within minutes, a catering assistant arrived with 2 plates, Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, a side salad. Real food, the kind Terrence couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten for lunch. For a few minutes they ate in comfortable silence. Then Naomi set down her fork. "I need to be honest with you about something," she said. "About why I wanted you here." Terrence looked up, suddenly wary. "All right. You already know about my father. He's home now, recovering, but he won't be coming back to work. He built this company over 30 years, and I've been running it for the last 5. But there's a board member, Richard Stokes, who's been trying to push me out. He thinks a woman can't run a logistics company, thinks I'm too emotional, too soft." Her hands tightened around her water glass. "When my father collapsed and my accounts were frozen, Richard orchestrated that. It was a power play, a legal maneuver designed to make me look incompetent, to make the board question my stability. It nearly worked." Terrence felt something cold settle in his stomach. "And hiring me is not a game piece," Naomi said quickly, reading his expression. "I hired you because of what you showed me, because I need people with integrity in this company, people who will do the right thing even when it's hard. But I won't lie to you, Terrence. The next few weeks are going to be difficult. Richard will come after me, and anyone close to me might become a target." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know what you're walking into, and because—" She paused. "Because I don't have many people I can trust right now. My father always said that you know someone's character when they have nothing and still choose to give. You passed that test. So I'm asking you, will you help me save this company? Not just by doing your job, but by showing the board what real leadership looks like?" Terrence thought about the warehouse, about Rick's perpetual scowl and the way he'd treated people like machines. He thought about the bills on his kitchen table, about Zoe's future, about the life he could finally build for them. But more than that, he thought about Naomi's trembling hands in the hospital lobby, about the way she'd looked when everything was falling apart, about the fact that she'd given him not just a job but a chance when she had every reason to protect herself first. "I'll help," he said. "Whatever you need." Naomi's eyes shone. "Thank you. But I have one condition." She tensed slightly. "What?" "You have to let me meet your father. If I'm going to help save what he built, I should know who I'm doing it for." Naomi blinked, then smiled. A real smile, warm and surprised. "He'd like that. He's been asking about you since I told him what happened." "This weekend?" "Saturday. I'll text you the address." She paused. "You can bring your daughter, if you'd like. My father loves children, and I'd like to meet her." Terrence felt something shift in his chest. The professional distance between them, already thin, felt suddenly transparent. "Zoe would love that," he said. "She's been asking who the pretty lady is that gave Daddy the good job." Naomi laughed, the sound surprising and bright. "Pretty lady? She's 7. She calls it like she sees it." "Then I can't wait to meet the little girl with such good judgment." That Saturday morning, Terrence stood outside Zoe's door, holding the outfit they'd picked out together the night before. Her best dress, purple with white flowers, the one they'd bought for Easter last year. "Baby girl, you almost ready?" The door swung open. Zoe stood there in the dress, her hair freshly braided, her dark eyes bright with excitement. "Do I look pretty, Daddy?" "You look perfect." "Is the pretty lady going to like me?" Terrence knelt down to her level, taking her small hands in his large ones. "She's going to love you. But remember what we talked about? Be polite. Say please and thank you. Don't touch things without asking. And it's okay to be myself because myself is pretty great." He pulled her into a hug. "That's my girl." The address Naomi had sent led them to a neighborhood Terrence had only driven through, never stopped in. Tree-lined streets, houses set back from the road, not apartments stacked on top of each other. Manicured lawns and flower beds that spoke of gardeners and sprinkler systems. The Chen house was elegant but not ostentatious, a 2-story colonial with cream-colored siding and black shutters. A wheelchair ramp had been recently installed, the wood still bright and new. Terrence parked his old Honda on the street, suddenly conscious of the rust spots in the passenger door that didn't quite close right. He looked down at Zoe, who was staring at the house with wide eyes. "Daddy, is this a palace?" "No, sweetheart, just a nice house. Come on." They walked up the path together, Zoe's hand tight in his. Before Terrence could knock, the door opened. Naomi stood there in jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked different outside the office, younger, more open, almost vulnerable. "Terrence, and you must be Zoe." She knelt down, bringing herself to Zoe's eye level. "I've heard so much about you." Zoe looked at her father, then back at Naomi. "You're even prettier up close." Naomi laughed, the sound genuine and delighted. "Thank you, and you are absolutely beautiful. I love your dress." "Thank you. Daddy bought it for me. He picks out all my dresses because he has good taste." "He certainly does." Naomi's eyes flicked up to Terrence, something warm passing between them. Then she stood. "Come in, please. My father is very excited to meet you both." The house was warm and inviting, filled with family photos and comfortable furniture that looked lived in rather than decorative. The smell of something baking drifted from the kitchen. Naomi led them to a sunroom at the back of the house. There, in a wheelchair by the window with a blanket over his knees, sat an elderly Chinese man with kind eyes and an oxygen tube in his nose. "Papa," Naomi said softly. "This is Terrence Walker and his daughter Zoe." The man's face lit up. "Ah, the hero of the hospital." His voice was accented but strong. Come, sit with me." Terrence approached, extending his hand. "Mr. Chen, it's an honor to meet you." "James, please, and the honor is mine." His grip was weak but sincere. Then he looked down at Zoe. "And who is this beautiful young lady?" Zoe stepped forward, suddenly brave. "I'm Zoe Walker, I'm 7 years old, and I'm in 2nd grade, and my daddy says you built the company where he works now." "I did," James said, smiling, "with these hands." He held them up, weathered and marked with age. "Do you know what a company needs to be good, Zoe?" She shook her head. "Good people. People like your daddy. People who care about others. That's the secret." Zoe nodded solemnly. "My daddy is the best person I know." "I believe you." Naomi disappeared into the kitchen and returned with tea and, for Zoe, a plate of cookies still warm from the oven. She'd made them. For them. They sat together, the afternoon sun warm through the windows. James told stories about building Meridian from nothing, about the early days when he drove deliveries himself, about the mistakes he'd made and the lessons he'd learned. "My daughter thinks I'm tough," he said at one point, glancing at Naomi with affection. "But I'm soft. Too soft. I always believed the best in people. Sometimes that hurt me, but mostly, it saved me." "Like when Daddy gave the pretty lady his money," Zoe said, cookie crumbs on her lips. "Exactly like that," James said. "Your daddy saw someone who needed help, and he helped. That's not soft. That's strong." At some point, Zoe asked if she could look at the garden visible through the sunroom windows. Naomi offered to take her, and Terrence nodded. Alone with James, Terrence felt the weight of the older man's gaze. "My daughter doesn't let people in easily," James said quietly. "After her mother died, after her engagement fell apart, she built walls, high ones, but you walked right through them." "I didn't mean to." "I know. That's why it worked." James leaned forward slightly. "She's in trouble, Terrence. Richard Stokes is a snake. He wants this company and he'll do anything to get it. He thinks a dying old man and a vulnerable woman are easy targets." "You're not dying," Terrence said. "I am." James said it simply, without self-pity. 6 months, maybe less. Heart failure. I've made my peace. But I need to know she'll be all right, that the company will be all right. I'll do everything I can. I'm not asking you to save the company." James's eyes were intense. "I'm asking you to protect my daughter. She's brilliant and strong, but she's also alone, and Richard will use that against her. She needs people she can trust, people who won't betray her for money or power." "I won't," Terrence said. "I promise you that." James studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Good, because I think she's starting to care about you, and that terrifies her more than any board meeting ever could." Before Terrence could respond, Naomi and Zoe returned, Zoe chattering about the rose bushes and the butterfly she'd seen. "Can we have a garden, Daddy?" "Maybe someday, baby girl." "I could help you start one," Naomi offered. "If you'd like. I've been tending this garden since I was Zoe's age." "Really?" Zoe's eyes went wide. "Could you teach me?" "I'd love to." Something warm and complicated bloomed in Terrence's chest as he watched them together. Naomi's careful attention, Zoe's open enthusiasm, the easy way they'd connected. This was dangerous. This feeling, this hope that maybe, just maybe, life could be more than survival. But for the first time in 2 years, Terrence let himself feel it anyway. Terrence Walker, a struggling single father and warehouse worker, gives his last $50 to help a stranger, Naomi Chen, when her card is declined at a hospital where her father is being treated. Despite having only $3 left and his own financial struggles after losing his wife Keisha to cancer, Terrence acts with pure compassion. Naomi, the CEO of Meridian Solutions fighting to save her company from a hostile board member, is deeply moved by his selflessness. She offers Terrence a job interview, which leads to him becoming director of operations despite opposition from Richard Stokes, who tries to destroy both their careers and budding relationship. As Terrence excels in his role and falls in love with Naomi, they face corporate warfare, her father's death, and attempts to delegitimize their relationship. Together, they overcome these challenges, with Terrence eventually becoming board chairman. They marry and build a family, including Terrence's daughter Zoe and their son James. The story culminates in the creation of the Second Chances Initiative, helping hundreds of overlooked individuals rebuild their lives, proving that one act of kindness can create ripples of transformation that change countless lives forever. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.